In the previous video, we looked at selecting an image to create our t-shirt with. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use this awesome online editor called Pixlr to create a final product that then will convert into a vector file. Now, of course, you can always use GIMP if you'd like. You can also use Photoshop if you're familiar with Photoshop, but Pixlr will give you all the same functionality as GIMP and most of the functionality in Photoshop. Again, it is a free product, so it's not going to have quite the amount of features and things like that that Photoshop does, but it's going to be enough for you to get done what you need to get done. And for most people, GIMP or Pixlr is going to be perfectly fine for them. It's probably going to be overkill for most of what they need to do. You'll also notice that Pixlr has a mobile version. It has a iOS version, Apple iPhone, and iPad. It also has an Android version, so you can actually use Pixlr, which I found is really, really cool to be able to do things that you can do on the browser inside the mobile app as well. A lot of times it's easier to draw and to erase things with a marker or whatever else with your finger than it is a mouse. But you don't have quite the features that you do, obviously, in a full-size browser. So what we're going to do is we're going to load up the editor here, and it is going to load in a similar, if you've ever been inside Photoshop, it's going to be a very similar interface as Photoshop and GIMP as well. And so you're going to get a option panel here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open an image from my computer. So it's going to actually download an image from my computer here, and I'm going to open up my phone image here. So I'm going to hit open here, and now you can see very, very quickly actually it uploaded my image. So now I have my phone here ready to go. You'll notice that I picked one that has mostly the same color background, and it really doesn't have a lot of features going on, but you can kind of see that this is my phone here. And so once my image is here ready to go, what I'm going to do is, there's multiple ways of doing this, but essentially you want to remove all this background color back here. And you just want to make it white or clear, or, and by clear I mean transparent, or a specific color that you're trying to go for, because this is going to be your background. So whenever you upload this to Teespring or you put this into the vector converter, then it's actually going to remove this background. So we're just trying to isolate this phone right here. So what I'm going to do is, you can either take the eraser tool. A lot of times what I'll do though is I'll actually go up here and I'll add a new layer on top of the background. And what this does is it allows me to paint on essentially a white color onto this image while always being able to keep that background back there. So I always, at worst, I always have an unlimited edit undo, because I can always delete this front layer and add that background layer. That's a personal preference. That's just the way that I've learned to edit photos and things like that. I try to do it as non-destructively as possible. So all you're going to do here is, I'm just going to paint this. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger here for the beginning. And then of course what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my color here. I'm going to change this to white, and I'm going to hit OK. So now you can see it's just painting on a white here. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do the bulk part of it back here first. And then as I get closer to the phone, I stop, and what I'll do here in a second is I'll make my brush a lot smaller to get close to it. I'm going to make my brush here a little bit smaller. Let's do 50 to start with. And so I kind of get closer here. Again, you'll notice that if I turn this layer off here, my background goes back there. But whenever I export this out as a JPEG or a PNG, all it's going to do is show, it's essentially going to flatten this. So it's going to look like I removed the background, even though technically I really didn't. All I did was paint over it. And of course, if you ever come through here and you accidentally do something like that, or you get a little bit too close, you can always come back up here and hit edit undo. Again, this looks very, very similar to what Photoshop looks like, what GIMP looks like. It's all essentially the same tools. The graphics may look a little bit different, but essentially it's the same tools. This one is just so cool because it runs inside your browser. So you can do this from any computer. It doesn't matter how powerful your computer is. Any computer can run this. So you don't have to have a super powerful computer to be able to edit images. And again, it is free, so you don't have to worry about having a huge cost up front. And again, as you go through here, this doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You'll notice that I didn't get my drawing tablet out. So, there's some indentations here because I'm just using my trackpad here. So I'm drawing this with my finger, so it's not going to be 100% accurate. But whenever we put this in the vector later on, it's actually going to hide a lot of those mistakes. Obviously, you don't want to do something like that. Otherwise, you're going to notice that. You don't want anything too horrendous, but you don't have to worry about getting it 100% accurate. You can just get it close and then move on. And what I'll actually do is I'll actually zoom in here. So I'm going to hit view here and zoom in a couple of times so I can move around this phone a little bit easier. And so once you have it zoomed in here, you can make your dot a little bit smaller and kind of clean up a few of these edges here. So I'm going to do that again. You can see that it's not perfect. There's little dips in black and things like that, but you'll notice that the vector will actually help you out with a lot of that. It'll kind of clean this up, make it look a little bit nicer because it actually removes some of the detail. All right, so now I have my phone here cleaned up and ready to go. You'll notice that it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And actually what you can do, the advantage of having a layer here is, let's say that you wanted to clean up, let's say like this little spot right here. You could actually zoom in a couple of times here. Let me get close and scroll it up. Let's say you want to fix that little divot. You can actually take the eraser tool and come back over and clean that up. So you see how I did that? That's the advantage of having the extra layer. That's kind of why I do it that way, so that I don't have to edit and undo a whole bunch of times if I zoom out and I notice that it doesn't look very good. But that's pretty good right there. Again, it's not perfect, but it's actually going to get the job done quite nicely. So now I have my photo ready to go. I have my subject isolated. And so what we're actually going to do in the next video is we're going to take this image and vectorize it. And so what we're going to need to do that is we're going to hit File here and we're going to hit Save. And we're going to hit My Computer. You can see here you can upload it to a whole bunch of different places. I'm going to save this as Phone for Vector. And you can use it as a JPEG or a PNG. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to do a PNG. That's just the format that I prefer. But you can also do a JPEG. It works exactly the same way. I recommend using one of those two. These down here are going to be large, and they don't play very well with the vectorized tool. So PNG or JPEG are the two that I recommend. Usually my philosophy is if you're on a Mac, a PNG works better. If you're on a PC, a JPEG works better. I don't know why. I think that may just be in my head. But the PNG is also transparent. So if you erase this, you need to use the PNG so that it will actually be transparent. So then you're just going to hit OK here, and it's going to save my file to my Downloads folder. And once it's done downloading, you'll see that I have my phone here. So now I am ready to vectorize my image. So I'll see you in the next video, and we're actually going to upload this and vectorize it. So see you in the next video.